And I guess one of the things that the questions that I had, especially with how much how much your work intersects on the Cysurance side with both product companies as well as service providers, people experiencing the risk, right, and trying to mitigate it. Um, do you do you agree with some of um, the conclusions that they drew in terms of the ratio of attacks? Like, is that consistent with what you've seen? I think that the one of the figures that they threw out kind of early midway through the paper was that it's about around 6 times less likely to experience attack if they do all of these things. What are your thoughts there?
Yes, I would say that in our experience and what we see, that's about accurate.
Mm,
Certainly, it's the counterexample that one can speak to more effectively, because that's a little bit of a how long is a piece of string kind of question.
mm,
Because we do know that with a lot of providers, we're seeing, like I've one specifically where from mean time to no to mean time to remediation, we're talking 5.7 minutes, right? So
mm.
that certainly changes the dynamic of the 260 some odd days. Although, 2 years ago it was 360 some odd days, so we are improving even on that side. But the being able to identify and rapidly remediate is the really key component. Where the counterexample, I think, is even more important and stark is when we look at a recent incident that we were a party to, where the organization shut off their multi-factor authentication as well as their API connection to some of the endpoint management software.
Mm.
So that was a severe event. And really what made it particularly severe beyond the obvious pieces is that being able to rapidly identify that there was a compromise was the challenge.
Mm.
And so what we're seeing is that when they're not in place, those are the areas where it's likely that that event still, of course, would have occurred, but that it would have been much more rapidly caught and probably remediated before there was ever an incident, an insurable incident. And that's the thing that I think there's this distinction that is important to be drawn, where we discuss these incidents that are sort of, we'll say, common, right? That they're happening fairly commonly inside organizations. They're often remediated, but then we have insurable events. And what sort of indicator of compromise incident to now we have an insurable event, and how do we intersect those 2 points between our organization and your organization so that we're aligned to the things that matter equally to us, when it's important to, of course, remediate incidents that are just low level incidents.
Hmm.